Welcome to the podcast. It's Whether or Not and to What Degree, and it's the fall edition. We're recording this actually right before fall gets started, but we wanted to kind of get in depth because this is something that folks around here absolutely love, is fall color.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it, Kendra. You know, like that first fall air mass we've had a couple already this year, but that first one we get, that first morning where it's a little crisp, has that little feel of fall to the air. We've had that a couple of times already.
And it's like, I tell people, I'm like, don't get too excited about this because you know it's going to get muggy again. We'll probably end up with a tropical system that messes the whole thing up. But, you know, people just love to see that first little twinge of color up in the mountains. And I know growing up in the really deep south, southeast Texas.
That is deep south.
We got some, I know, and you don't really think of it that way, but it really is this far down there. We got some fall color, but not much. Like
nothing brilliant.
We're not a destination in Galveston, Texas, to go see fall color. But I know you grew up in an area that, like, I went to New England on family trips around Thanksgiving, and you know, really it's kind of past peak at that point. But I just remember being so astounded by all the color up there.
It's
you got to experience a lot of that growing up, right?
You know, growing up on Long Island, we had some color, but we had to get up into New England, like Vermont, where we vacationed a lot in the summer or winter. That is where people go for the leaves into New England, you know, and it was really something special up there. But it has to be right. You know, we've talked about the weather conditions. They have to be right. Is it dry enough? Because, as you'll explain, sometimes if it's too wet, it's not so good, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of factors that go into it. We did some research on that. We're going to talk about that toward the end of the podcast. So good little teaser there, because it's like, you want some rain because you don't want to be in an extreme drought because you'll lose the leaves too fast, but you don't want too much rain. So, you know, it's just like, it's like life. Everything has to be that perfect balance to get it just right. But first off, I thought we would start by talking about why the leaves change. Like, what is the process here? We're trying to kind of keep it fairly simple. And as you can imagine, really the first step is getting those cooler temperatures, less daylight, cooler temperatures at night. That really spurs along the process. And the reason for this, you know, it's daylight, the sunlight, that is the food for plants. And it creates chlorophyll. Well, the chlorophyll, when it gets less sunlight in the plant, breaks down. That's what causes the green color. So that's why the green begins to go away. And then you get the transition to the other colors like red and yellow that can be so brilliant when they're in that transition phase to, you know, eventually dying and falling off the tree.
And I think the plants and trees also sense the sun angle. The sun angle is getting lower in the sky, and then that creates the process that we just talked about.
Yeah, you know, it's a sad process if you think about it. The leaves are slowly dying, but at least in their last gasps of breath,
I saw Jim Gaffigan in concert.
Great.
And he did a thing on the fall leaves. He's like, why do we go out there and, you know, oh, look at the beautiful dead fall leaves falling. Isn't that great? They're dead. They're dying. You know, kind of had that bit about it.
Yeah, we're weird, but, you know, we still love it.
But, you know, they are pretty when they're dry and falling. And, you know.
Absolutely. And, you know, for me, fall just symbolizes all of the great things that come with fall. You know, love Halloween, love football, you know, all of these things that come with the season. So to me, maybe it's just that it symbolizes such great stuff that's coming. But, you know, I'd say Vermont's a big destination, but obviously the North Carolina mountains.
Oh, yes.
People come from all over to drive the Blue Ridge Parkway, to go see the Appalachian Trail, and to see that color. And I know you did some research recently. I'm going to go ahead and make sure our graphics clicked ahead, that, you know, kind of shows generally when you can expect some of that really good color to start showing up and possibly peaking, right?
Exactly, and a lot of it is really dependent on elevation, Kendra.
Yeah.
You know, we really, you know, so here's the breakdown of the timeline. So the last week of September, which is going to be upon us very, very quickly.
Yeah, we're recording this podcast on September 15th.
I know, yeah.
So right now, not a whole lot happening,
not a whole lot.
Getting there.
Right, in a couple of weeks, we're talking about spotty color above 6,000 feet along the Blue Ridge Parkway. And then we move into the first week of October, and the colors transform above 5,000 feet around Mount Mitchell. and Grandfather Mountain. And then the second week of October, between 4,000 and 5,000 feet, we've got vibrant colors, Mount Pisgah, Blue Ridge Parkway, Cashiers, and the Waynesville area as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of this is hinging on the weather. If we get a tropical system, right, with wind and rain, all bets are off, right?
Absolutely. That can really mess up the whole thing. But yeah, just from my memory, I always feel like right around mid-October is when people are really flocking up to Western North Carolina, because you don't have to go to the extreme high elevations. You don't have to hike up to the top of Mount Mitchell to see that color. You're going to see it in places like Asheville, or maybe just north of Asheville, coming into that second, third week of October. But we have to wait a little longer for the lower elevations,
True.
right?
And then the third week of October, the third week from 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Best colors are in Little Switzerland, back through Brevard, Table Rock, Bryson City, and once again, Pisgah National Forest.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're just listening to us, if you're not watching, we'll make sure and read off all of these locations as we go, because we do have a graphic up right now. But if you're listening, that's what, Bob's just kind of rattling off these locations. But yeah, I mean, I think especially Table Rock up in the far northern upstate, over toward Pisgah National Forest, these are places that folks just, love to go and hike. And so that third week of October this year is what it's looking like is going to be. And we got some help from the Asheville tourism site to fine-tune these dates.
Sure.
But yeah, really kind of an exciting time for those who want to see that great color. But then it looks like toward Halloween is when, like, say you're just going up to Asheville or going to see the Biltmore, that's when you're going to see the really good color there.
It's going to be beautiful then. Yeah, so you want to check out Asheville, the French Broad River area, the Biltmore. Maybe take a stroll in the North Carolina Arboretum and the DuPont State Forest area as well.
Still never been, and I thought
I haven't been there either.
I bet that's amazing. You like to hike. I feel like that would be something you'd enjoy doing.
Yes.
I used to like it before I had kids, and then I'm like, oh, the idea of dragging three
you gotta
kids.
pack everybody up.
Yeah, so we'll see. Either when they go off to college or maybe when they're in high school, they'll want to do it with me. But I'm wondering, so I guess Hendersonville would also probably be in that list too.
Yes, because they are over 2,000, a little over 2,000 feet.
Yeah, and that's kind of in that French Broad River Valley area. So, and then looks like toward the first week of November, that's when it begins to go down to Chimney Rock, Rutherfordton, which is down in the foothills, Tryon foothills. Oh yeah, the wine country.
I haven't been to the wine country there.
People rave about it.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
I mean, there's wineries all over, but I've heard really glowing reviews about that. Because you went up to a winery in Ohio, was it?
Yes. Okay. We have family in Northeast Ohio, and outside of Cleveland is a really growing area of wine country out there. And it's such a, growing wine is such an art, and there's a science to it because everything has to be right. The soil.
Just like fall foliage.
The climate.
Yeah.
In fact, the grapes come to maturation this time of year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But maybe we could talk about that in another podcast.
Yes. You know what? I think we decided what's the perfect weather for growing wine. Yeah, and you brought me a bottle from that winery that I've been holding on to, so I'm excited to try it. We'll skip ahead now and just kind of take a look at a map that kind of gives you an overall idea of what we're seeing. And again, it's at this point, we're looking at September 15th. That's kind of what you're seeing here. There's a little bit of color above 3,500 feet, but not the big show just yet.
No, not yet. And, it's going to take time because, we are still looking at the warm conditions. And it'll be really interesting. I'm very curious to see what the colors will be like in those flood-ravaged areas.
Yeah.
From Fred.
Yeah.
Because if this is true with all the rain that they picked up there, that the colors would not be as vibrant.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess it really depends. But then we also have a dry stretch now in a way too.
Yeah, so that's where it gets really a little bit complicated. We're doing a little research on this, and logically you'd think, you get a little bit of rain, it'll make everything healthier. You're gonna have trees that are well, watered. You're gonna have leaves that are healthy. You'd think that would be the right combination for the whole process to go well. But there's so many factors at play. In fact, we've got another graphic, but again, I'll still read through it too for those of you who aren't watching. The best thing for fall color, we talked about it, is that, it responds to sunlight. Obviously during the summer, everything's so green because we get so much sun. if we have a bunch of cloudy days in a row, if we have a bunch of rain, that's going to affect how it all happens. So clear, sunny days are best, and then you want those clear, chilly nights.
Yes.
So if you've got cloudy conditions at night, rain, and you don't have a lot of contrast between the daytime and nighttime temperature, it's not going to trigger that reaction for color change as well. So what you really want is pretty weather, especially starting in September onward. It doesn't seem like what happens in the summer really affects it unless you've been in a severe drought. If you've been in a terrible drought, then chances are everything's going to be so unhealthy and so dead that nothing's going to look good. But essentially, rain diminishes the color. So what you want is the dry stretch that we've had recently, and that's what's interesting, Bob. And I really don't know the answer to the question, in that the intense rain we got from Fred, it happened 4 weeks ago, a month ago?
About a month ago, yeah.
So maybe that was long enough where things have dried out since.
Maybe.
And as this process is starting, it hasn't been that wet lately. So that's what will have to be interesting. And I may reach out to some professors. I know up at UNC Asheville, there's some folks that know a lot about this stuff. So we'll have to kind of find out. But we'll see. Right now, though, they're expecting to see some really brilliant fall color up there. And so I don't think the Fred 2-day heavy rain event is going to have a huge influence on it, even though logically getting a lot of rain like that could mess with things. But I really think it's more like if there's a rainy season leading up to it. That was more of a quick, terrible event that happened. So hopefully it won't keep us from seeing some good color.
And I was looking at the long range too. I was looking at one of the many models. We look at the GFS model, and I was pointing out to you that it looks like in the west there might be a big ridge there and a trough in the east. So we might have those periods where we get some more fall air masses coming down, and we have some of that cool, dry weather to enhance the colors through the month into October. So let's see, but you know how those long range models go.
Oh yes, we take them all with a grain of salt.
Oh yes.
But the other thing that when you get a really cold air mass that comes in, a lot of times those cold fronts can spark severe weather. Let's hope there's not so much wind that it messes up the trees. There's all sorts of things that can happen.
Exactly.
But it's an exciting time. I think a lot of folks get excited for fall color. So hopefully those dates helped you out. We'll be posting more of those on our weather blog, as well as my World of Weather segment, which is on Facebook Live, will air next week. So if you're watching this a little later, probably air. It says 15th, I think it's going to be the 22nd of September. And Bob will be hitting on this a good bit during our 4 and 5 o'clock newscasts in the next couple of weeks too. So if you, we'll be updating, especially if those dates end up adjusting at all. So sometimes if we get a little warm spell, it'll delay things.
Sure.
And we'll keep folks posted on best time to go up and leaf peep.
Leaf peeping, yeah.
That's such a weird thing to call it. But it's really what you're doing, technically. But anyway.
And then you get to say how beautiful they are, and then your significant other says, okay, go ahead and pick them up and put them in the bag and put them on the street.
Right, there you go.
Clean up the yard now.
Well, and that's the other thing about this area, and I've never experienced it, is you see the beauty of the fall leaves, but then they fall. And we have 2 oak trees, one in the backyard, one in the front yard. We just get buried in them. So we pay for that beautiful color. I feel like after that, we're just buried. So that part of the season will be coming soon, but hopefully we can enjoy the good color.
True.
And thank you so much for sticking with us for our podcast today. And if you have an idea for a topic or you want to chime in on this, you can read viewer comments as well on our next podcast. Just email us, weather@foxcarolina.com. So hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with Bob and myself, talking about a little bit of fall color, something we both enjoy, as
Absolutely.
you can't tell. Bye, guys.
Bye.